It is every child's right to be loved and protected, but with an increase in cases of sexual violence against minors by those meant to protect them, it is important that we raise awareness to tackle this maniac. As we know, this is a place of peace and healing through talk. My name is Maria Chike Benjamin, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we meet a powerhouse who's made it her mission to speak up against child molestation and rape. Please help me welcome Bam Bam. It's such a great pleasure having you on the show, Bam Bam. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure.
How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Good. So obviously, I do know a lot of people know who you are, but just for the purposes of those who don't know you, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, your family background, your educational background, and all of that before we dive right into the incident?
Okay, so I am Bamike Olaomi Adeniboyan, married to Teddy A. We have 2 beautiful children. My parents were diplomats. We traveled a lot. And my mom and dad were very busy. I graduated from Bells University of Technology, where I studied microbiology. I'm from Ogun State.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
So just to actually emphasize a little bit about what your survivor history is, you were, as a child, molested.
Yes, I was.
Could you talk us through the first incident, or actually rather how it first started, or what led to it?
So my parents were very active working parents, newly married. We were in Port Harcourt at the time.
Okay.
So we got a new nanny to take care of me. I was between the ages of 2 and 8.
Okay.
She was young. I'm not sure she was up to even 18.
Your nanny?
Yeah, my nanny.
Yeah.
So when she started with the family, I just remembered that she wasn't very pleasant.
Okay.
And because I had just started talking and she was always at home with me, my dad would be out all day. Mommy she did shifts, nursing. She wouldn't feed me on time. She was just a bit mean, and she would threaten me that they're gonna leave me alone with her anyway. So what's my problem? And maybe when I'm supposed to be taking a nap, she would come, try to make out with me.
So it happened consistently all through these years?
So the thing is, I can't remember my exact age. I know that the window age was either I was 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
So it was within that age, and it happened for about not up to a year. But why it was significant for me was what she did before my parents sent her away, because that was the worst. That night, the one that I really remember vividly, she used my fist to pleasure herself. She forced me to suckle on her breast. She really was having a great time, and I was disgusted because I was confused. I was really young. I didn't understand what was happening with me. And my parents came back earlier than she thought. So she tied my mouth, strapped me to a chair, and locked the door, and told my parents that I didn't want to go to bed on time. So she forced me to go to bed, and she locked the door. So I remember, I think I was about to lose a tooth.
Okay.
So I was trying to scream for my parents to come help me or save me, and they couldn't hear because the wrapper she used was really tight. And it was muffled, and I swallowed my teeth. So I was crying.
So sorry.
And until my parents came back, they were tired, of course. They had dinner and they went to bed, so they didn't come to check on me. So they didn't know. Yeah, they trusted that I was fine. And I remember when she came and loosened the wrapper off my mouth. The same night, yeah. My parents had already gone to bed, and she looked at me that if I said a word, she was going to starve me. So that was the most significant one I remember. But it's possible that for as long as she was my nanny, it was something that was ongoing in subtle ways. But that particular one was the significant one. I couldn't tell my parents at the time. We never spoke about it even until I got older.
When did you actually first ever speak? What gave you the courage to actually speak?
After having 2 girls. I have 2 girls now. There is a whole thing going on the internet about pedophilia and normalizing same-sex marriage and kids being adopted to same-sex couples that are actually abusing them and tormenting them, and them trying to introduce it into the school curriculum as like it's okay for an adult to want to desire a young child, and all of that is a bit too much.
100%.
And I'm like, why?
Okay.
I'm a grown woman and I have
now you're a
children
mother.
now. Because I had never dealt with it, I had never seen a therapist prior to the trend of this news online. It triggered something inside of me. I was bitter. I was
You remembered
really
the past,
angry.
sort of the emotions
so
came up.
all the emotions that I didn't know hadn't been dealt with, that had been suppressed for only God knows how many years now. It all came up, and that's when I did the video that people now started to realize that, oh wow, Bami went through all of this. You know, it's disgusting. It's disturbing, and I don't think any child deserves to go through any of that. Even if it's because some adults think it's okay, and this is
it's not okay.
They think it's okay for them to be bringing it into the school
two
curriculum.
adults having to have sex if they want to, there has to be consent.
It's wrong on every level. Children should be children. Let them just be, please. And anyone who is experiencing trauma of any kind, there are advocates out there. There are therapists specifically trained for children who have been abused. And parents should start to let their kids be comfortable, to trust them more than aids and helps, you know. It's okay for you to be a busy parent because you need to provide for your family. But make an extra effort to ask questions. Baby, how are you? How was your day? How was your nanny with you?
I'm glad you
and
mentioned
study
that, so.
body languages, study body patterns, because the child may still be scared. But you need to let your child trust you more than anyone else, and let them be able to call out wrong behaviors. Did auntie say you can only trust her? Did she say, like, there's some words from my experience, I now know the kind of things to look out for and to ask my daughters.
Just to go back as well with what you've just mentioned, did that make you resent, or have you spoken to your parents about it? I mean, I presume they know about this.
Yes, now they know now, yeah.
Did you ever feel any sort of grudge?
Against my parents?
Yeah.
No, funny enough, no, I didn't. Because it's not their fault.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they were young and they needed to do what they had to do. So it's not their fault.
So your parents never actually tried to track back?
Well, right now, because it's almost 30-something years now. So I don't even know who she is or what she's doing with her life now. It was the recent trends that really triggered that past experience that I didn't think probably even has had effects on it.
Psychological.
So the thing is, until you see a therapist and they ask certain questions, you wouldn't know how much abuse has affected your life and your worldview and a lot of things that you do on a daily, and how you are with people, how you are with males and females, sexual preferences and things like that. You never know. Yeah.
Do you think psychologically that's stopped you from feeling a certain way towards the opposite sex or even the same sex?
So, to be fair, no. That's a trick question, because the truth is, when I started seeing the patterns of sexuality and sexual preferences, I had the worldview that probably abuse has had a major effect on people's decisions. It didn't influence my choice of dating or spousing or anything. No, it did not.
Okay, that's great. With your parents having to be away and not to put subject on your parents, do you think would you class that you had a great childhood all through?
Yes, so I had a very rich childhood. I love traveling, and my dad did that for us. His job took him around the world, but at some point he had to say, okay, you guys should. I've been to over 12 schools. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So that has made my mindset and my personality rich. I mean, you've encountered me, don't you think I'm awesome?
You like it. I love it. Yes, I have.
So to be honest, I think that's what has kept me sane, because there was a healthy balance. My father was a disciplinarian, my mother as well. They were very, very strict, but it kind of helped in molding. I know the person that I am today is because of my parents. Good. So I'm grateful.
Well, we're thankful for them.
So it did help a lot. So that's why I couldn't fault them. I didn't even realize that it had an effect on me until I'm seeing this thing. And you know, the thing about trauma is until you encounter something that triggers it, because it's just there.
You don't realize
and it's suppressed. And because they're very vivid, scary emotions that need to be dealt with. You don't know that it's a problem until something really brings it to the surface. And I literally, if you could tell, I had an outburst.
Oh yeah, in that video
I was
Yeah.
livid.
That was
I couldn't take it anymore. And I just felt that as celebrities, as young women, aspiring mothers, we need to let trauma end with us and not encourage this evil that is being brewed, that is about to destroy the generations unborn.
Currently, how are you with that protection?
There are cameras everywhere in my house.
Have you got nannies?
Yes, I have nannies.
How are you with them around your children?
I prefer more mature nannies.
Okay.
Now I know that I will not employ a too young nanny because I don't know what she's been through. Okay. Even if the agency tells me that she's okay, I don't know that.
Yeah.
I know that I would be very, very particular about sleepovers for my kids because I don't know the home setting of any other parent. I know certain boundaries that I've put in place because of what I went through as a child. Okay. You understand? I know that
Did you have those boundaries as a child? Like no sleepovers, none of that?
Yes, actually, yeah. My parents were very particular. That's why the only access to trauma was from the nannies, because they were younger. And only God knows what they went through. Hurt people hurt other people. That's usually what happens, right? My OCD in protecting my children.
Well, that's great that you're a mother now, and that's great. If you don't protect them, you are supposed to protect them. Who would?
And no matter how busy I am, I try to make sure I have quality time with them.
Good.
It's important. Money would come, money would go, but I want to raise happy children.
I've been meaning to ask, how do you think this new trigger that's come out of you, do you think there's been some sort of forgiveness in the past? I know you don't quite remember a lot of stuff because that was your early childhood days and, not a lot of people remember stuff, but you do remember little gruesome activities that she's done. Forgiveness-wise, how do you think you feel? Do you think you've forgiven your abuser?
So this new trigger made me to start seeing a therapist because I remember feeling anger, real anger and disgust, right? And I know that we're in a world where you would constantly encounter people who their reality and their actions, you can never really control someone's action to you. You can only control how you react. So that I'm sure my emotion is in check because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm very particular about how I'm perceived, right? So I needed to talk to someone and realize that I didn't know that I had all this undealt with emotions towards this person. So going through all of that with my therapist has helped me heal. And definitely, I believe that has helped me forgive this human because apart from it being good for me and my mental health, it is also what God expects me to do.
Yeah. So I'd like to know, do you think with obviously your experience having been traumatized as a kid because of this, do you think your age now with interactions with people in general, do you think that's made you build this?
Yes, I can tell you for a fact that I am guarded as a person and I get peopled out easily. People don't know that. So I could be in an environment where, like, I remember when I started my debut as an actor and I was on a movie production set and the guy was trying to mic me and he needed to put it in between my bra, my chest.
You were a bit defensive about
I was it felt really awkward and then he was like, I think they do you. I said, get out. Like I was so, and imagine being in a position where you're just trying to build your career as an actor. Yeah, you're starting up. And the gist out there is that these are the people who talk about you behind closed doors. Oh, she's amazing on set. Or these are the people that kind of put in word for you as an upcoming actor. Not
or
really
where they speak about you in other places.
So now I'm torn between should I suppress my irritation just because I don't want this guy
have a good
guy
image.
to have a wrong impression about me, because I really became very cautious about how people perceive me. I became very self-conscious. I had insecurities I didn't know that I hadn't dealt with. There is something about abuse and trauma. It makes you feel filthy. Like unconsciously, you just kind of feel irritated about yourself.
Okay.
It's going through therapy I realized that you shouldn't blame yourself for the things that happen to you.
100%.
It's actually the perpetrator that is the stupid person.
That has the issues.
But over the years, I don't know, somewhere at the back of my head, I just felt, I couldn't explain it until going through therapy. I realized it was something that needed to be dealt with. And now, because I'm in a position where I should naturally yell at the guy and not care that my career is at stake or not, but to protect myself, he was being inappropriate and I should yell at him. I just told him to get out, but later I went and I'm like, I'm sorry if I came off rude, but I felt uncomfortable.
Okay.
So, not breast now. Yeah, look,
yeah, and
they
don't get it. Yeah.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
When I made that video and I said, please, fans, families, friends, colleagues in the industry, we need to do something about creating a safe environment for ourselves and our children.
100%.
It was deep, because if there are more women who do not feel there is anything wrong with being groped in public and all of that, it encourages this thing, and it puts people who should be protected in a really awkward position. Even when we were in America in high school, I remember that when I started, I was very jumpy. Like, if you touch me, I'm like... So it's now that I'm realizing that
these are all psychological
these things
effects
actually had an effect, and it was
you didn't realize.
Exactly.
And you never
could trace it. And I didn't know that was what was having an effect on me.
Okay.
I didn't know that was what had formed. It may be seen as little or as trivial, but even though I can only remember that one time where it was really bad to the point where I gagged at my own teeth, I wouldn't have known that the effect is why I became jumpy and defensive and insecure and unsure about myself. And instead of me to blame these evil perpetrators, being cautious and being careful so they don't think Bam Bam is uptight.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
So you also stated you only do remember the significant one that you remember, but it happened more than once.
It most likely did.
Throughout those early years.
Yes, it most likely did. I remember my dad told me a story. I was a newborn, like maybe probably 5-6 months. My mom was probably done breastfeeding or something. And they had to go to work. So all of that was not something they were cautious about until the neighbor complained that they were always hearing me cry.
Oh, okay.
So when they went to work, she would strip me naked and take cane and start flogging me.
At 6 months?
At 6 months, yeah. And the neighbor now told my parents to look into it. That was when I was a baby. So my parents pretended to go to work and pretended like they had locked the door. They just locked and opened. And she was young as well, probably like a 12 or 13-year-old. You know, back then it was usually really young people that were maids and nannies and stuff.
Yeah.
So they just heard her talking and talking and talking.
To you?
Yeah, and
what was she
complaining
saying?
And because of all her problems. Wow. She was clearly a traumatized kid. So what I have realized is that many of these people are abused. That's why they do it back to other people.
Like you said earlier, only hurt people hurt people.
So they came in and saw her literally beating me up and bundled her and sent her back to wherever it is she was coming from.
And then the second nanny did exactly the same.
So what I have just done is I can't control. You can tell me things and they may be lies.
100%.
So I put don't take my kids to corners where there is no camera. So my little baby is very fond of her nanny, and anywhere the woman goes, she follows. So
that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Yes, it is a good sign. She's very fond of her. Anywhere she goes, she follows. But their room, I don't have CCTV in their room. I can't be monitoring what they're doing.
Go there.
So I have to go and be like, I know Maya loves you, but you can have maybe somebody else, maybe the maid, go sit with her while you use the bathroom. But don't take my kids where there is no camera. I may be able to trust you. I don't know if the cook is well behaved, even though she's a woman. I don't know if the maid is well behaved, even though she's a woman.
How do you think she perceives that? How do you think she receives
So she was like, she felt like, do you think I will hurt? I said, no, it's not about you. It's just what helps me. So I'm usually very honest with them. I go, look, a lot happened to me as a young child, and I would only do what's best for me for my mind and my children.
To train your children.
Don't take my kids to corners where there are no cameras in the house. Do you understand? And they stopped. I mean, my house, my rules, right?
What other more advice have you got for younger parents or even older parents who...
Younger moms, younger dads, parents-to-be, young fellow Nigerians, if you know you have been abused in one way or the other, please just get help.
It's been such a pleasure having you on the show, Bam Bam, and we do thank you for, sharing your story. Like I said, it's very courageous being in the limelight and still having the audacity, should I say, telling such a story and encouraging other people and trying to shed light on child molestation or any form of abuse whatsoever. So we're very thankful for that. But before we leave, we do have a great actor in the building. Yes, a celebrity guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Etim Efong. It's a great pleasure having you on the show, Etim. I really do appreciate your presence. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Bam Bam, for taking time out to share with us. It takes a lot to come out to speak about something as sensitive as child abuse and sexual molestation, violence, all of that. Very sensitive issue, and it takes a lot of courage and bravery to come out and speak about it. So thank you, first of all. Let me just say thank you, Bam Bam, for sharing
Definitely.
that very, very touching story. Yes. Thank you for sharing that very touching personal story, because I know for certain that it will help someone out there.
100%.
So yes, it's personal healing for you, but it's also a huge, huge source of inspiration to others out there, and almost like a check for all mothers, especially young mothers like yourself, to just, because as you were speaking in my head, I was doing a mental check, I'm like, okay, because I have a daughter as well, I have to be like, okay.
And
so,
a son,
and
non-gender.
Right. And a son, exactly. So parents, young parents out there, things to check, so I was making a mental note, as I listened to you. So thank you so much for doing that. And of course, we know that now that you have spoken to us and shared with Maria, that of course your healing process that began has, will continue and will come to a lovely
100%.
end. So thank you.
We have come to the end of the show. And if you or anyone out there who needs help fighting these sort of issues, there are agencies out there waiting to help you. Remember that a problem shared is a problem half solved. Until next time, I remain your host on Healing with Maria. My name is Maria Chike Benjamin.